Although since 1856 the two main political parties have been the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and most people refer to the US as a two-party state, there are a lot more than two political parties. In fact, 9 political parties in the 2020 US presidential election received over 10,000 votes, and 5 different parties have controlled the presidency: the Federalist, Democrat-Republican, Democrat, Whig, and Republican Party. Of course, there have been more than 5 political parties in major US politics. So where's the deciding line for what makes a political party a major US political party? It could be decided that the line is having an elected legislator in the federal legislature. There are a lot of regional parties and candidates throughout history, and most of them don't represent the US as a federal whole. It could also be getting over 1% of the popular vote in a US presidential election. However, that would lead more to the people who gain enough votes and not really the party. Plus, as seen in recent presidential elections, popular vote doesn't decide the winner of an election. This leads me to make the cutoff as having received only one singular electoral vote out of the 24,296 electoral votes throughout US history. There are a grand total of 18 of these, and this video is about these 18 political parties, which I am going to henceforth refer to as the 18 major US political parties. In the first presidential election of 1788, 2 parties gained votes, the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist, which both gained some electoral votes. However, independent George Washington received the most out of any of these candidates and became the first president. The Federalist Party was mainly created by Alexander Hamilton, and received electoral votes from 1788 to 1816, being one of the main 2 political parties during that time, although they only had one president, John Adams. After Adams' 1800 loss, the party was the de facto minority party, continuing to slowly wane until not even being a factor nationally. The main belief of the party was about creating a strong, centralized federal government, expanding its size and scope over the states. This came to show in their wants to create a national bank, protectionist policies, and pro-British sentiment, along with general nationalization. However, they were responsible for some blunders, including the Whiskey Rebellion, an armed anti-tax uprising, the Alien and Sedition Acts, which among lots of things eliminated anti-government speech, which violated the First Amendment, the Quasi-War, which was an informal war with France over diplomatic insults, and later the Hartford Convention, which was a failed reform attempt during the War of 1812, which essentially killed the party. The main opposition to the Federalists at the beginning was the Anti-Federalist Party, sometimes known as the Anti-Administration Party, who opposed the Constitution and instead liked the Articles of Confederation, which was the founding US document from 1776 to 1787. Generally, they just wanted a very small government and didn't have very defined beliefs other than that. The party only received 4 electoral votes in 1788, and after that just became a loose idea. Later on, the remnants of the Anti-Federalist Party were picked up by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, who turned the party away from its anti-federal stance into a small government stance, and became the Democrat-Republican Party, who received votes from 1792 to 1824. They had 4 presidents: Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, and John Quincy Adams, who all served in a row, in which the party won every presidential election from 1800 to 1824. Their political beliefs were centered on the limiting of government and equality for all, which only came in the form of equality for all white men. However, that was a big step considering that at the time, only a property-owning white male could vote, and electors voted for whomever they wanted, ignoring the popular vote. The party was also a proponent of expansionism and limited foreign influence, which is where the Monroe Doctrine came from. However, the US was a little pro-French. Slavery was also a large issue within the party, with some believing it horrible, a necessary economic evil, or a good thing, which is part of the reason that the Democrat-Republican Party fractured in the 1824 election. With the fall of the Federalists after the War of 1812, which ended in 1815, came the era of good feelings, which was completely dominated by a one-party state of the Democrat-Republican Party. Eventually, everyone couldn't agree on everything, with issues like slavery and the role of government leading to the party to nominate 4 candidates in the 1824 election: John Quincy Adams, Andrew Jackson, William Crawford, and Henry Clay. Andrew Jackson won the most popular and electoral votes. However, it was not a 50% majority, so the state delegations to the U.S. House voted, and they elected John Quincy Adams. This fractured the Democrat-Republican Party into 2 parties: the Democratic Party and the National Republican Party. The Democratic Party that was formed supported Andrew Jackson, which is the party that is now the current Democratic Party of today. However, their beliefs are pretty different from that of today, so I'll cover each version of the party at a time. Keep in mind there is much debate over these eras, and that these are my own personal eras. The first era of the Democratic Party was the Jacksonian era. The Jacksonians supported a smaller government, free trade, states' rights, expansionism, and the expansion of the office of the president to override the other evil branches of government, with his infamous veto, which he repeatedly used to override Congress. The party appealed to the poor, the rural, and the working class as a somewhat populist party. However, they had little care for slaves or the native population. This Jacksonian era from 1828 to 1856 saw good success, winning 75% of the elections, with Presidents Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, James K. Polk, Franklin Pierce, and James Buchanan. The internal divide over slavery led to a political collapse in 1860. The Democratic Party was disliked, however they did dominate politics, as no single party could unhinge their control, with 7 different parties going up against them, most of them failing, however. In 1828, Jackson beat Quincy Adams of the new National Republican Party, which I will get to later. Jackson's first term was so divisive that 4 different people from 4 different parties ran for president in 1832. They were the Democratic, Andrew Jackson, and 3 parties in which this would be their last time receiving electoral votes: the National Republican Party with Henry Clay, the Nullifier with John Floyd, and the Anti-Masonic Party with William Wirt. Jackson won this election, and the losing parties then dissolved to become new parties. The Nullifier Party was formed by John C. Calhoun, a member of the Great Triumvirate, along with Henry Clay and Daniel Webster. Calhoun was the VP of Jackson, and he didn't like him, so he left and joined the Senate of South Carolina as a nullifier, whose beliefs were pro-slavery and extremely states' rights, believing that a state could just not obey federal laws if they didn't feel like it. For the most part, they just didn't like Jackson and rejoined the Democrats in 1836 after Andrew Jackson left office. The Anti-Masonic Party was against Freemasonry. They believed they were corrupt and evil and controlled all of the U.S. government, as most of the Masons were rich, powerful, or had some influence in government. The strangeness and secrecy of the Masons, along with the murder of a prominent anti-Mason by Freemasons, led to this strange one-off party that was in essence the first U.S. conspiracy theory, eventually becoming a political party, centered around anti-Masonry and in general anti-elitism. As to what a Freemason actually is, I really don't have a clue. To sum it up, from what I have gathered, it's a weird cult-like group for old, rich, white, male, and boring people who are trying to be cool with their secret handshakes and rituals with the goal of making men better people morally. They do this by taking part in rituals, volunteering for charity, reading old scriptures, and playing cards in Dungeons & Dragons. Whatever they are, they almost just seem like another college fraternity for old people. They ran only once with William Wirt as their nominee, who gained nearly 8% of the vote, with the party eventually becoming an anti-elitist group that merged into the Whig Party in 1836. The final party was the National Republican Party, which was based on John Quincy Adams and his supporters. He ran under the platform in 1828, losing, and Henry Clay ran in 1832, losing again, which led them to create a broad anti-Jackson party known as the Whig Party. The National Republican Party believed in a lot of Alexander Hamilton's economic beliefs, such as protectionism, a national bank, and increasing government spending on internal infrastructure to help kickstart the economy. This can essentially be used to trace a line from Hamilton's economic school to Clay's American system to modern Keynesian economics under Keynes, FDR, and the modern Democratic Party, which again is another instance occurring of the 2 modern political parties switching beliefs, which will also be covered in the second part of this video. From 1836 to 1852, the Whig Party, a party merged from the National Republican, Anti-Masonic, and other political remnant parties, including the now tiny Federalist Party, all joined the broad coalition against Jacksonian democracy and its Democratic Party. Led by Henry Clay and Daniel Webster, it was similar in policy to the National Republican Party, with the American system, yet shedding the image of an elitist party, with the skilled middle class as its base. The party was anti-imperialist as well, and preferred the expansion of the legislative branch. This contrasts with the democratic ideas of free trade, agrarianism, presidentialism, and imperialism. The Whig Party won 2 national elections, and both of these candidates died in office, leading them to have 4 presidents: William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, Zachary Taylor, and Millard Fillmore. In 1854, after political failure and the Kansas-Nebraska Act, the Whig Party collapsed. In 1848 and 1852, there was a small political party known as the Free Soil Party. While never winning an electoral vote, Martin Van Buren ran under the banner in 1848 and won over 10% of the vote. For reference, they are not an official party because they never received over 1 electoral vote. The Free Soil Party was a single-issue party, which was ending slavery, first in the New Frontier, or the Mexican Cession, and then overall. After the Kansas-Nebraska Act in 1854, the Whig Party decided it was going to collapse and become some weird anti-slavery party, only by the name of the Republican Party. When the Free Soilers found out about this, they just left the Free Soil Party and joined this Republican Party, which is also what the Democratic Republican Party and the National Republican Party were commonly referred to as. However, the collapse of the Whig Party led to the strange creature from the abyss, known as the American Party, commonly known as the Know-Nothing Party, which fits in the line with their political opinions which make no sense. They were extremely anti-immigrant, hating Catholics, Irish, Germans, natives, pretty much everyone that wasn't from England. Yet they were outspoken in their beliefs to end slavery and women's rights, although they were apparently pro-labor and big government. They nominated former Whig President Millard Fillmore in 1856 and got 8 electoral votes. Good going, Maryland. Anyways, this is half of the major political parties explained. I'll cover the Republican Party and the other 8 parties in the second part, which will be from the election of 1860 to 2020. There will also be a third part about the individual candidates who received 1 or more electoral votes and some strange, interesting, and hilarious facts about them. They will be released in a couple of weeks after this video, so if you like this video, there will be more. I doubt anyone will ever watch this, and I'm doing this for my own fun only, but if you are a real human being, thank you for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm producing more videos on topics like these as well.